Welcome to the Pitchfit. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but this one's going to be a special because it might be longer than 5 minutes. With the recent news of Spyglass Media kind of ruining the franchise for Scream now due to extremely poor business practices, and just ultimately disrespecting their actresses that work for them, the state of Scream 7 and also the franchise in general is, it's not great. And I was hoping that the requel trilogy would break the curse of requel trilogies with terrible third acts, and unfortunately that's not going to be the case. If you like Halloween Ends, that's fine. No, it's not a Halloween movie. It's different, but it's not a Halloween movie. And I am a major Scream fan, so this is extremely unfortunate. I have them tattooed on my wrist. I have the Scream game, and I'm also trying to get the Ghostface licensed board game that's coming out as well. I have Scream, and all of Scream, and I'm also a very big fan of the MTV series, at least season 1. Also, Scream Resurrection is not season 3. I do not care if you say it's season 3. It's not season 3. And that is the worst thing I've ever seen in the Scream franchise. I stayed up late to watch those episodes release on cable, and it was a terrible time. The only redeeming quality of that is the pseudo Candyman versus Ghostface fight. That's it. That's all it is. And as a major Scream fan and Ghostface fan, this pitch fit was going to be a different idea, but I changed it to a Scream idea, and it's going to be a fun one. It's a special, so it's also going to be a long one. And as with most of the series on this YouTube channel that I haven't touched in about a year, there are going to be some slight changes for the better. This pitch fit is no longer really going to be just me blabbering or having a very short script. I'm actually going to be making what's called a pitch deck for these episodes to make them more streamlined, but also give them more of a style. Make these videos in this series more unique, as what I've been trying to do with every series on this channel so far since I've returned. So we're gonna get right into... Wait a second, I didn't expect this. I'm gonna see who that is.
Hello, YouTube. Ghostface is taking over the Pitchfit special today, and Enzo's taking a short break. We're going to be covering the next idea in the Scream franchise as a show, so hopefully you enjoy. Let's stab right into this. Cult of Screams is a 6-part horror crime series in the world of Scream, taking place after the events of the 6th installment in the franchise. The formula to surviving a slasher killer is turned on its head as police departments struggle to contain a national spree of Ghostface-related killings across Texas and Florida. A winter-themed straight-to-streaming stab movie is caught up in production hell out of the fear the killings will affect public perception of the production, and the cast and crew are at risk of ending up on the other end of a blade within their snowy northwestern set. With the rise in true crime fanatics and stab enthusiasts lurking anonymously on the internet, it poses a large-scale challenge for the FBI agent Kirby Reed, portrayed by Hayden Panettiere, to tackle after her history with Ghostface cases. The story. We start within a cold, snowy set somewhere on the outskirts of the northwest coast nearing the beginning of December. A lead actress in the next installment of the Stab franchise returns to her trailer where the current day of production hasn't started yet, but she is stalked by a ghostly white-cloaked Ghostface and murdered in gruesome fashion while no one is aware. Stubborn producers and agitated crew play cat and mouse to figure out what their best next move is. Down in the south, a retired detective turned Texan farmer Jose Santos becomes the target of a Ghostface assailant, donning a scarecrow-like costume. His troubled past gives him the idea that the killer must be someone with a vengeance against him, between potential criminals and even shady family members. In a twist, our third Ghostface killer from the Sunshine State is revealed to us in his opening kill, Jeremy Donner, as a young initiate to the online cult-like Ghostface worshippers that anonymously talk about their supposed targets and kills. A leading Ghostface in a Red Devil version of the iconic mask makes appearances online and in person to Jeremy as a figurehead for this crazed true crime community. While the events of Scream 6 ended not long ago, Kirby Reed is back on the scene with the FBI investigating these cases with other agents to see if all the connections can be linked to this dangerous internet cult and put a stop to the growing national threat before more innocent lives are lost. The structure. This 6-part series will be broken up into a 3-act structure, typical of most stories, but through 3 separate plots, all connected by 2 things: the online cult and Kirby Reed. Act 1, the first 2 episodes. On the snowy set of Stab 8, leading actress Veronica Wright is slaughtered by a ghost face in a snow-white cloak and hidden away from the rest of the production crew. Director Clive Reed stresses as producers push forward with developing their straight-to-streaming product, and a new lead, Sandy Garcia, is hired not long after the killer lurks about. Kirby Reed is back on duty and alerted about a case in Texas which mentions a masked scarecrow-like figure similar to the infamous masked killer she survived before. We're also introduced to the Floridian Donner family, with Jeremy, a bullied high school senior, his athletic brother Tyler Donner, who is friends with Jeremy's bullies, and Cecilia, their caring mother. Retired detective Jose Santos survives his first encounter with a scarecrow-themed ghostface, but receives more questions than answers when investigated by local authorities Sam Fisher and Julia Cortez. The scarecrow puts a patrol officer in critical condition after they were tasked with surveilling the Santos property, and Jose feels personally responsible, especially after the assailant leaves Jose with a clue only he and few would know from an incident nearly a decade ago. At the end of this first act, a classic-looking ghostface kills Tyler's girlfriend Jessica Campbell and leaves a symbol in blood for cops to see. However, breaking the franchise mold, Jeremy is revealed to us as the killer early on. The second act are episodes 3 and 4. As the FBI becomes aware of an alarming number of Ghostface killings, Kirby sends herself to Texas to aid with the Santos case, and Agent Manuel Brown is tasked with the Campbell case from Florida. The Stab 8 production team is unaware that a killer is amongst them, but when production assistant Amelia Locke discovers the body of Veronica, production completely halts, and a snowstorm isolates the crew to the wooded area to solve this case themselves. Meanwhile, Jeremy gives the audience a fresh perspective as we finally see how a Ghostface killer prepares and executes plans in tense fashion, as his motives are fairly straightforward. Killed those who wronged him in school. The complication now is that Tyler is suspected by authorities and his house is under supervision by Agent Brown. Jeremy also hopes to impress online anonymous cult leader the Devil of Woodsboro, who's formed an online following of dangerous enthusiasts who seek to harm those deserving of it. Lastly, Jose Santos confronts former officers, prisoners, and even shady family members for any motives or leads that could help him catch his lurking scarecrow. In the final third act, the last 2 episodes, Kirby and Manuel piece together their separate cases while the Stab 8 cast and crew get picked off one by one. Jeremy tiptoes around police traps, Jose confronts his demons, and Clive Reed holds together a paranoid team against the ghost. The Devil of Woodsboro makes an example out of Cecilia to the public online, and some of our heroes survive the climactic bloody episode 6. Tone and style. The legacy of Scream injects its iconic mystery and unfolding story into the show's veins. Every encounter with Ghostface must feel like the victim's last breaths on screen. More cast members, more blood. 3 separate environments, claustrophobic and cold, rural and creepy, suburban and familiar, will give us uniquely dressed settings for their appropriate killers. A white ghost, a disturbing scarecrow, a classic killer. Visually similar production quality to a cinematic slasher you'd see in modern theaters. Shadowy figures, heart-pumping energy, practical gore, yet mixed in with a slower-paced TV drama, police department briefings, family drama, teenage victim discussions. Episodes with hour-long runtimes are the norm and fit best for the 6 episodes with evenly paced stories that all intertwine in some way or another. An hour should feel like 20 minutes. This series is right after the events of the 6th installment in the franchise and will explore the modern-day problem of a society obsessed with true crime and the lengths of like-minded internet communities that share a terrifying interest in harming people for whatever reason. Sam and Tara were targeted by Richie and Amber, who met online in the 5th movie, then almost became the victims of Jason and Greg, who were also fanatics in the 6th movie. This series will dive deeper into the idea of a bloodthirsty, cultish fanbase that justifies killing behind the mask. Teenagers will have their safety tested, on brand, and law enforcement will endorse saw-like stakes to catch killers, and regular people will distrust one another, as if they were trapped at Outpost 31 from The Thing 1982. The Killers. The Ghost is what the original concept for the first movie's killer was, a chic ghost-like figure donning a Halloween mask. We'll finally see Ghostface attacking a ghastly, sleek white cloak that would have been stolen from Stab 8's wardrobe department in the series' story. Weapons for this killer will range from a fillet knife, an ice pick, and even a production equipment, like a hefty C-stand arm. This Ghostface will be swift and agile, sticking to the shadows, reminiscent of the Phantom of the Opera as their presence feels all the more ghoulish. Their motive is unclear at first, but most of the victims seem to be heavily involved with the on-screen elements of the production, such as talents or the director, and not so much crew members like catering or grip. The killer seems to want to affect the creative process as much as possible, perhaps for their own benefit. The Scarecrow has a much more violent approach, trying to make themselves a constant in Jose Santos' life. This killer is not an amateur, and they have a certain skill in creating traps for their victims, and playing psychological games too. Inspired by the fun world costume, but having a couple aesthetic changes, this Texan Ghostface blends into a dry and eerie foreign land. If Ghostface and Jigsaw collided into one being, this would be them. Bear traps, rusty hammers, farming scythes. If you're not suspended by a rope over a jerry-rigged wood chipper, then you're gonna be gutted firsthand. This killer's motive is obvious. Make Jose Santos suffer before he dies. Jeremy Donner will be the first of a kind Ghostface. We know his identity by the first kill. This type of approach is similar to the twist of Jason from the 6th film, but Jeremy changes the formula as we actually get to follow his horrific plans through the series. He wears a classic outfit with a classic Buck 120 knife, besides 2 changes. He later marks his mask with 2 blood trails from his eyes similar to his favorite film, Halloween 2, 1981, and he leaves behind a symbol after each kill that appears like a hybrid between a Ghostface mask and a question mark. Jeremy's motives are akin to Billy Loomis or Stu Macher, angsty and angry at the world, giving their victims a piece of their mind. Jeremy feels betrayed by his brother Tyler, who sides with Jeremy's bullies simply because of long-term friendships and romances. Jeremy has decided to resort to killing, as inspired by the Devil of Woodsboro's online manipulation of the masses, and Jeremy will have to avoid police interference because of it. The victims. Kirby Reed returns to the franchise, cementing herself as iconic as Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, or the Carpenter sisters. She will be the glue our series will have going forward, as every Ghostface case affects different people, yet her presence brings a hope against the killers. She's traumatized by her past, but does not run away from it. She chases her demons to put a bullet in them. Manuel Brown is our Officer Dewey Riley of the series. Supportive, experienced, and Kirby's right-hand man. Their chemistry is built on multiple cases together, and the occasional bar hop during the weekends. His main priority is making sure his partner in crime is supported. His second priority is catching the criminals at large. The Donner family will suffer the consequences of Jeremy's actions. Tyler will suffer with the morality of not supporting his brother, unknowingly fueling Jeremy's murder spree against his friend group. Cecilia will worry for the safety of both of her sons since she wasn't there when their father had passed long ago, and she blames herself. In doing so, she will both add stress to Jeremy's plans and deny his involvement if convicted. Jose Santos will receive FBI support once he becomes a target, but his grizzled ex-cop attitude leads him to put puzzle pieces together through his familiar contacts and job history. Jose was involved in a police shootout gone wrong where false information caused the death of innocent lives, and although he is not personally responsible, he was the lead on the case, and years later, he's paying for his sins. Sam Fisher is a Texan through and through. He loves hunting, he loves his state, and he's been a cop for a couple years in the same department that Jose was from, though the two never officially worked together as Sam was younger. He will do anything to protect his fellow people, but believes that Jose may have made more enemies than allies while on the force, understandably so. Clive Reeds is aware he is on a tight deadline, and it shows from the moment he steps on screen. However, being at risk of homicide changes him from an uptight production head to paranoid group leader, simply trying to get his cast and crew out of their predicament. It's not just guilt he feels, it's fear, since he may take more stab wounds than he would prefer. Amelia Locke had already made friends working on sets before, and as a production assistant with a year under her belt, it's like the little sister of the crew. She's young, she's passionate, but she's been unfortunately put into a morbid situation she cannot escape. The Cult. Scream has always been a franchise that dive into satirizing horror, and many horror films owe their plot lines to vicious cults. The Wicker Man, Midsommar, Hereditary. However, an even better and unappreciated trope happens to even the most established franchise. The slasher killer comes from a cult. Look to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, 1995, or the appropriately titled Cult of Chucky, 2017, which dive into this niche. Ghostface has had a trilogy, a TV show, a reboot, a requel, and has even been to New York. So the franchise's next step into slasher territory is by adding a cult. When you put together a story like the one in the series, you realize that a Ghostface cult fits perfectly into established lore and works with the main movies' narratives. The Stab movies have insane fans, and every killer has had insane motives. These two groups merged the moment Richie Kirsch and Amber Freeman admitted to meeting online as fans of the movies and talked about a Stab subreddit, which is only the tip of the iceberg in our 6-episode show. The modern age of online forums and the dark web keep anonymous creeps in the shadows, even in the real world. In this series, it's not just satire, but a message to audiences about the dangers that lurk just beneath our keyboards. On the other hand, our protagonists aren't just victimized by the influence of technology and Ghostface. As the franchise has always shown, even their own tools and technology can work against the killers, and our heroes will figure out how to find answers through these cryptic codes. It may just be the background menace looming over these intertwined stories, but if the stories are branches on our digital tree, so long as the roots are planted, trimming the branches won't stop its growth. Franchising. Cult of Screams is written in a way where if this is a miniseries that receives no further installments, it will thrive on its premise. It will have a cult following, and will stand on its own two legs within a franchise that has spent 3 decades at the top of the horror community's favorite list. However, it's also written to tease more. There would only be one unresolved plotline that would feed the audience at least one more season if granted, but could easily be a long-lasting fan-favorite horror crime show. The cult itself is never brought to the public eye because of the difficulties with tracking individuals and not having hard evidence on the internet. To add injury to insult, the Devil of Woodsboro is never caught nor identified after making an example of Cecilia Donner, and this creates a boogeyman for the nation that is watching, as well as a definitive villain for Kirby and Manuel to overcome. We can explore ideas the franchise never has, bring back characters that have survived previous installments, provide thematic arcs that shock our audiences and test our protagonists. The blood will flow, and this show will be added to the discussion of what's your favorite scary series. I hope you've enjoyed this Pitchfit special. If you like what you've seen, subscribe, like, and share. Enzo will be returning for the following year. And maybe you'll see more of me soon. Just be on the watch if you see my mask anywhere.